Good morning. For all of you online, it is great to have you worship with us. We hope you're having a great weekend. If you've been traveling, vacation, it's good to have you back. If all you did was staycation, that's okay. It's still good to have you here this morning. December 14th, 2023. December 14th, 2023, the city of Toronto came up with a new name for Dundas Square. Dundas Square, Yonge, and Dundas, downtown Toronto, and they came up with a new name, and it is called Sankofa Square. And you're like, what is that? Why change the name? And I know name change can get very racial and political, but stay with me for a moment. Sankofa Square. It's a name that means a lot to me. I grew up with this name in Ghana, and basically means to look back, to retrieve, to learn from the past so you can be informed and move forward. And I don't know how they came up with it, but I'm excited because it's brought back so much memories. Growing up, we had all these emblems and symbols and cravings in all these public spaces. And as kids, we would ask the elders, the older ones, what does this symbol mean? And with pride, they would tell stories. And this particular image here is a bird basically looking back to retrieve, to learn, so that it can move forward. This image is very popular in Ghana, and so many people have actually taking lessons from it. They've done a whole bunch of variations. But the lesson is, it's really difficult to move forward if you don't know where you've been coming from, if you don't know where you're coming from or where you've been. It's very difficult to make decisions about your future if you have no clue how you got where you are right now. See, Sankofa basically says, let's reach back. Not to romanticize the past, but to be able to say, wait a second, there are lessons here that we want to pass on to the next generation. You see, symbols, they help us remember our identity, faith, and hope. Without these symbols in our lives, we basically lose our identity. We lose faith. We lose courage. We lose the power. We lose stories. And I can imagine as the elders were explaining to us as kids what they mean, I could see not only their joy and their pride, but the hope they had that we'll be able to take the same stories and in turn share with our children and our grandchildren. Grandparents are the most proudest people on the face of the planet. They see their kids, they see their grandkids, and there's so much joy. And you know what they do best? Stories. Let me tell you when your dad was a little boy or a little girl, your mom was a little girl. They share these stories. Why? Because they believe in sharing those stories, they're educating, they're passing on to the future generation. We live in a generation that we are basically addicted to forgetting. We are addicted to forgetting. We forget names, we forget birthdays, we forget promises we just made last week. Why is that? Is it because we are so ungrateful? No, I don't think so. I think it's because we are emotional and we are irrational. And so sometimes we make decisions that doesn't align with our convictions, doesn't align with what we believe, doesn't align with our history. And so God, knowing this, He built His own Sankofa moment in our lives. He built His own Sankofa moment in His people's history. And we just had one not long ago. The communion was a Sankofa moment. It's to go back and to retrieve so you do not forget how good God has been to you. Spiritually, we forget God's greatness. We forget His goodness. We forget His grace. And God is saying, I want you to be aware how fortunate you are, how loved, how much I've invested in you, how much I believe in you. See, God has a Sankofa moment. And today I want to share one of these Sankofa moments with you. And to do that, let's go to Joshua. And I'll be reading from Joshua chapter 4, verse 1. It says here, when the whole nation had finished crossing the Jordan, the Lord said to Joshua, choose 12 men from among the people, one from each tribe, and tell them to take up 12 stones from the middle of the Jordan, from right where the priests are standing, and carry them over with you and put them down at the place where you will stay tonight. So Joshua called 12 together, 12 men, and had them appointed from the Israelites, one from each tribe, and said to them, go over there before the ark of the Lord into the middle of the Jordan. Each of you is to take up a stone on his shoulder, according to the number of tribes of the Israelites. Why? Why? To serve as a sign among you. In the future, when your children ask you, what do these stones mean? Tell them that the flow of the Jordan was cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord. When it crossed the Jordan, the waters of the Jordan were cut off. These stones are to be a memorial to the people of Israel forever. We're crossing the river, we're crossing the Jordan, but there's so much more than just crossing. Today I want to talk to you about emblems for future generations. Emblems for future generations. You see, the Joshua we see here is the Superman Joshua. It's one of those people that will go, those moments that you see a social media post and somebody's having the best moment of their lives. And you think about it and you're sitting at home and you're like, I'm missing out. But I want to take you back a little bit. Joshua, prior to this context here, he has been grieving, mourning, weeping, depressed. Why? Moses was dead. 40 years of history, 40 years of relationship, 40 years of leadership, 40 years of being with his best friend, gone. And according to their customs, they had taken 30 days to grieve. And there was this looming darkness waiting. What is going to happen next? Who is going to lead us? We know Joshua has been walking with Moses. We have a sense he is the one to lead us. But have you seen him recently? He hasn't come out of his tent for 2 weeks. And he's supposed to be the one to lead us? Can you imagine the tension? And we're talking about a group of people who've been in transition for how long? For 40 years. It's like they're trapped in this loop of eternal transition. Are we going? Are we making it? What's going on here? This is what was happening. The crowd, they're waiting. God was waiting. And so God goes to Joshua, and he tells him, step into your future. Step into your future. And he's like, well, what does that mean? Well, the message is this. Step into your future, trust God in the impossibilities, and set up emblems of hope for the future generation. And we're going to walk through these points. Step into your future. God told Joshua, be strong and courageous. Not once, not twice, 3 times. And you know when God says something 3 times, he means it. It means the recipient really needed to hear it. A similar incident happened with Peter. Do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me? That is what God is doing with Joshua here, trying to get him out of the grief, out of that moment of pain and anger and agony. And I don't know if Joshua was just grieving because Moses was dead and gone, or he was grieving for himself. Because sometimes we do both. We're grieving because of what we're missing, but also for the future ahead, the unknown, the uncertainties. Moses, why did you have to die? I was okay being your assistant, but I'm not prepared. I'm not ready to go. And God says, you are it. You are it. You've been prepared, and you actually didn't know it. You have all the prerequisites. You've gone through. I have trained you. You're good to go. But Joshua was insecure. The moment seemed overwhelming. And you could see the fear. And God is saying, step into your future. Break camp. It's time to move on. Come again? Have you seen the Jordan River? It's flooded. Have you seen these people? Actually, Moses didn't want to lead them. Moses actually begged you to kill him. And I'm it. The fear. I knew a little bit about fear. Not a lot compared to what Joshua was handling here. You know, last week, Kevin Robbins shared that, hey, after 40 years of ministry, it's time for me to step aside. And we knew it was coming. The gentleman who was leading this ministry here, this incredible ministry here, this building, everything, who's been leading us for the last 10, 15 years, he also took a step aside. And I'm like, Andrew, why do you have to do that? I'm okay being number 2 or number 3 or 4 down the road. Why did you have to? But see, they had to step aside for the next generation. And the burden of ownership, the responsibility of the souls, the magnitude of what God is calling us to do as next generation leaders is overwhelming. And so sometimes I mourn, not for those who are stepping aside, but for myself, for KJ, for Stu, for Thor, for Chris, for Anthony, for John, our wives, our elders. Step into your future. Break camp. And you cannot step into your future if you do not overcome fear. You cannot step into your future if you do not overcome fear. And that's what God was telling Joshua to do. I mean, it was so bad that he told him 3 times. And then the community got together and they looked at their leader, Joshua, and he was trembling and he was depressed and he was emotional. And they said the same thing to him, Joshua, we know God has spoken to you. Be strong and courageous. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that beautiful that the community, they're like, Joshua, we cannot do it without you. We need you to lead us. We need you to step up. We need you because without you, we are not going anywhere. And it was frightening. But you know what? It was also liberating. It was frightening that, yes, Moses was dead, but it was liberating to know that God was still alive. It was frightening to know that Joshua is timid, but it was liberating to know that he came out of his tent. And sometimes that's all we need to do is just to come out of our tents and put one foot forward. I have no clue what God is going to do because we have a Jordan River ahead of us. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to trust God for what He said He's going to do. He said He's going to be with me. All I need to do is to be strong and courageous. Then I'm going to come out of my tent. I'm going to come out of my misery. I'm going to come out of my divorce. I'm going to come out of my financial crisis. I'm going to come out of my health crisis. And I'm going to step out into my future. That's what God told Joshua. And he said, God, I'm going to take you at your word because you're alive, because you spoke to me. Church, when we read the Bible, it's alive. It's alive. I'm not even making it up. Hebrews talks about it. The word of God is living and active. It's alive. And many, many, many times, beginning with this guy here, I read the scriptures as if it's just some dead literature. It's alive. And if only we can do what it says, maybe we overcome our challenges. Maybe we will see as God sees. Maybe we'll have a better perspective. Maybe we'll be able to come out of our tents. Is it not the same with us? We too, we are afraid. We're afraid. It's frightening to hold on to control, but when you give it up, you feel liberated. It's frightening to make the first step to approach somebody who really cut you deep. But it's liberating to know that when you make that first step, you get healing for yourself. It's frightening, I'll be honest with you, to raise up kids in our generation today. Have you seen the world? It's frightening. And we come to church, and maybe if we're fortunate, we bring them to Devo and the M kids and all of that, and we think it's enough. It's frightening, but you know what? It's liberating to know that God has their names in the palm of His hand. It's liberating. It's frightening to know, to be unaware, uninformed about the future. But liberating to know that if Jesus came out of the tomb, we have hope. Step into your future. Step into your future. Because you know what happens when you step into your future? God shows up. God shows up. Step into your future. Because the testing phase, have you noticed that? It may be 40 years, but eventually it ends. It's never, ever, forever. Verse 1. It says the whole nation crossed the Jordan River. The whole nation crossed the Jordan River. Let's spend a bit of time here. And what I want to bring to your attention right now is that you've got to trust God in the impossible. Trust God in the impossible. Trust God in the impossible. What do I mean? The whole nation crossed the Jordan River. And they crossed it in a day. How do I know that? Verse 3. It says here, I need you to take some stones, and you are going to put the stones where you are going to spend the night. That means all the nation of Israel crossed the Jordan River the same day. Now, how many people are we talking about here? 1,000 people? 500? It's been estimated about 2 to 3 million people crossed the Jordan River. The Israelites was not just a small group of people. It was a huge group of people. And the Bible says that they hurried across the Jordan River. Now, you see this lane right here. I don't know if you can see it in the camera here, but we have a lane space in the middle here, and I think about 2 or 3 people maximum can walk through at a time. Do you think that is the pathway God created in the Jordan? Because you cannot move 2 or 3 million people through this lane here in a day. It's impossible. So what God did, as the priest stepped into the water, God stopped the river. He stopped the flow. The Bible says in chapter 3, verse 16, all the way upstream to a city called Adam. Now, Adam, from the crossing moment here, was about 25 kilometers away. So what God did was he created not just some little trickle for people to pass through, but God created a boulevard, a mega highway, so thousands and thousands of people, not a family at a time or a tribe at a time, no, all of them walking abreast together. Older ones, younger ones, animals, carts rolling. What was a burial became a boulevard. And I don't know what you think of God when you read something like this. That what was a river? And by the way, the Bible also tells us that the Jordan was in the flood season. That means God is not going to do anything incredible if the conditions are favorable. God comes out when it is impossible. That is why we got to step into our future and trust God in the impossible. Because that is when we see who He is. But if we stay in our tents, if we stay in our dark moments, in our depression, and in our grieving moments, we will not experience the power of God. The whole nation, they crossed the Jordan the same day. How big is your God? How big is your God? How big are the challenges in your life? Because sometimes our challenges become so huge, they become CN Tower high, so we don't even see God. But we're reading about God here who just gets excited about the impossible. He gets excited, and that fires me up. Because as Kevin Robbins was speaking last week, and as Andrew followed up, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I have so far to go. And then God said, yeah, I got you. We have so far to go. And God said, yeah, Mike, I get it. You can make it all about your insecurities, or you can make it about me. Trust God in the impossible. See, this is the kind of God we serve. He doesn't just make a way. He creates a highway. So much so that you can't miss it. This was not some Joshua all of a sudden came out of his depression and he's filled with faith and he says, step into the river and it stops. No, this was evident. It was so evident they all knew it was God. Is it clear to you that God has been moving mountains for you? Is it clear to you that God has been shaping your life? Is it clear to you God is calling you to step into your future? Because if you just think about stepping into your future, then we can just make it about us. But it is beyond us. It's greater than us. It's bigger than us. And that's what God wanted Joshua to know. Because he is saying, just as I was with Moses, I will be with you. And he promised him, no one can stand up against you. Church, many times I feel so insecure. Many times I feel so little. And God is saying, no, Mike, because you're just so self-centered. And all you can think about is just you and you and you. And I need you to come out. Come out so you can put your focus on me. He clears the way so that fear doesn't hold you hostage. If you're there right now, if you felt held up in captivity because of fear, because of sin, whatever it is, today is your invitation. Today is your invitation to step into your future. Today is your invitation to trust God in the impossible, because that's what He does best. You know, sometimes I wish God would just show me a sign, then I move. You know, God, can you just show me a sign? Am I alone here? Have you been there? Great. We have certain things in common. I want God to just do it. God, you think that person can become a Christian? Show me. God, you think my family is going to be able to survive these challenges? Show me. God, you think... Notice that God did not tell Joshua to look outside his tent and see the dry riverbed. He didn't do that. Prior, we learned that God said, you prepare the priest, tell them we're going to carry it. And can you imagine the back and forth with the elders? With the priest? Okay, what's happening today? Yeah, God told me last night, today we're crossing the Jordan River. Come again, have you seen, it's in flood season. Yeah, we are going to. So how are we going to do that? Well, God told me, I need you to carry, you carry the ark, and then you're going to walk into the river. Okay? And God said he'll make a way. It takes faith for the priest to believe that, because God did not reveal this to the priest. He revealed it to Joshua. And church, there's a lesson here. There's a lesson here. Sometimes we want consensus. We want to agree. Let's talk about it. Let's get the board, to talk about it. Let's talk to the elders, and let's have a meeting and a town hall. God spoke to Joshua. We got to believe that God has put in our elders and our evangelists in place to lead us. And we have to have the conviction that sometimes God will reveal certain things to us, certain direction that we want to take the church, that God is not going to make it clear to you. The question is, would you follow? Would you follow? What we read here is that the Israelites, they obeyed. Not once they saw the riverbed was dry, they walked in. KJ has some incredible dreams and aspirations for us as a church. And over time, he is going to reveal them. And I put before you, not all of us are going to see it. But we got to put our faith in God and what he says, and in our leaders. Interestingly, they had to put their foot in the river before God cleared it. Now, God had done this before with Moses, because sometimes, Sankofa, we forget. Sometimes we don't go back to retrieve the information, so when we encounter new experiences, what happens? We fall apart. And God is saying, no, we got to set up emblems for the future generation. We got to set up emblems for the future generations because we want to keep the story alive. That's what I see here, verse 6. Set up emblems of hope. Verse 6, what do I mean? These stones. God, isn't it just enough to just cross the river? What do you want me to do again? Find 12 men, one from each tribe. Let them go into the river. Let them carry stones on their shoulders to serve as a sign among you in the future. When your children ask you, what do these stones mean? Then you tell them, God did a miracle. God stopped the river. You know something interesting? I see here, even in verse 12, let me read verse 9. Joshua set up 12 stones that had been in the middle of the Jordan at the spot where the priest who carried the Ark of the Covenant had stood, and they are there to this day. God told him, hey, just take 12 stones with you, and wherever you go, take it with you. And they did that. Eventually, they set up the stones. They erected a monument at Gilgal. And I don't have the time to get into this, but Gilgal became a command post. Gilgal became a place of memory, a Sankofa moment. This is where, later on, Samuel will worship. This is where Saul was anointed king. This is where, even later on, this same region, the Jordan region, is the same place that later on John the Baptist will even come and baptize. Why? Joshua didn't want them to forget. This is the exact spot we crossed. This is the exact spot we saw God's deliverance. And then the stones that they carried with them, every time, I can imagine every single time that they're going to war before they conquered Jericho. I could see them looking at the emblems of hope. I could see them looking at the stones. If God cleared a path for us, and these are the receipts. We've got to keep the receipts. We've got to remember. Can you imagine their faith getting stronger and stronger and stronger by the day? Because this was not just a story. Because they had gone back to retrieve. Not to romanticize the past. Because the past is not always pretty. But there's some great lessons from the past that Joshua and God wanted them to bring along. Set up emblems of hope. The message God wanted to have for these people is this: step into your future, trust God in the impossible, and set emblems of hope for the next generation. You see, what does it mean for you and I today? We are a church in transition. Many of us became disciples when we were teenagers. Many of us became disciples when we were campus students. I've been at this since 1992. That's a long time ago. We are growing. We are a church in transition. And when you are a church in transition, what happens is that you've got to be intentional about the next generation. Because as we age and as we face challenges and health and all of that, we tend to reduce our faith to our circumstances. And God is saying, when we do that, we are killing the future generation. Let's not do that. I want you to notice a few things in the text here. The older ones were not the ones who went into the lake to what? To retrieve the stones. You take your strongest, and you say, we need you. You carry the stones. The future generation, the younger ones, are the ones asking questions. Just like I did when I was in Ghana. These symbols, what do they mean? These stones, what do they mean? And the older ones, they were the one offering the meaning, the stories behind the stones. Do you see this energy? Do you see the intergenerational? I think that's our context. One generation provided the emblem, the stones, they set them up. The other generation is like, what's going on here? And church, this is what we need in our church. We need the younger generation to be able to see your faith so high, erected, that you're like, whoa, tell me a little bit about your faith. Why at your age are you so fired up? Who is your God? I want to know your God. This is what has to become clear in our church, so visible in our church. Not long ago, a young lady reached out to my wife, say, can we hang out? And it's like, oh, okay. Why? You know, she didn't say why, but you know what I mean. It's like, just wondering. Then they got together. They had breakfast. And it was sort of, hey, I just want to get to know you. I've seen you here and there, and wow, there's something about you, and da-da-da. She could be my wife's daughter. But she wanted to spend time with my wife to get to know her a little bit so that she can grow in her faith, so that she will be able to understand the stories and how she got here. My brothers and sisters, the older ones, we need you. We need you. You have a Sankofa moment. You got to tell us your story. You got to live a Sankofa life, looking back and moving forward. All the mistakes you've made in your life, and I think there are many, even at my age, I've made a few. The younger ones, they don't have to make the same mistakes to learn. Can you hang out? Can you invite them in? Younger ones, can you humble out? Can you reach out? I know we live in an age that before I tell my daughter anything, ChatGPT has already done that for me. You know? And I'm competing with social media and ChatGPT, and I'm not saying technology is wrong and all of that. We can use it the right way. But younger ones, can you reach out? because both matters. We need the younger generation. We need the older generation. I used to believe that when you elevate, you alienate. That is not true anymore. I don't believe that anymore. I believe we can both coexist, co-create, and we can both commemorate this incredible church that God has given us. We can celebrate, we can come in, we can contribute, we can give. You do not tell stories with your arms folded. I'm sorry. You don't do that. You don't come to church to worship and we're singing. And what story are we telling with our lives? What example are we showing the next generation? I'm almost done. We've got to keep the story alive. Keep the story alive. And I cannot keep the story alive if all my kids see in me is my fears and my insecurities and my doubts. I cannot keep the story alive when I am passive, when I'm indifferent. I cannot keep the story alive when I don't teach my kids generosity, humility, faith, gratitude. I cannot keep the story alive when I only do what is easy, what is convenient. I've got to keep the story alive. You see, Sankofa Square, downtown Toronto, definitely prompts conversation. What name is that? Where did it come from? What does it mean? Similarly, when you leave out your faith, it becomes clear. See, when you step into your future, you keep the story alive. When you trust God in the impossibilities, you keep the story alive. When you set up emblems of hope for the next generation, you keep the story alive. And then we think about Jesus, our Joshua, the one who led us to cross not just a riverbed, but to cross from the river of death to life. And he set up an emblem for the next generation, for you and I. Not an emblem which is a stone, but a cross on a hill for all nations, for all people. And today we are here because of that emblem. We're here today because of that sacrifice. So how would you keep that story alive? Maybe for some of us, you have to decide today that you grab a piece of paper and find out what your fears are, what tents you've been hiding in, and how God is calling you out. Maybe for some of you, you need to make a list of all the impossibilities and prepare to see God do the impossible, because you're going to make a decision to trust God in the impossibilities. And maybe you are going to find a stone, and maybe you're going to write a passage on it, or maybe you're going to set up something in your living room, somewhere in your backyard. I don't know what it is, and I'm not advocating setting up idols and all of that. You know what I'm talking about, and you're mature. Maybe you're going to set up a stone so that you can keep the story alive for the next generation. Thank you.